Niaje jamaa, kama kawaida Mr. Green hapa, show ikiwa nifika mtaani, na so far bado tuko kwa ile movement ya housing. Story ya housing ni story critical, na moso Nairobi watu waongeleagi housing, watu feel kumove from ile hao yao ndogo aende kwa 3 bedroom apartment, analipa how much, anafiligi anaishi poa. But kuna the other part of housing watu wanafaa wajue. Unafaa ujue housing inafaa ikuwe affordable, ndo lifestyle yako ikuwe better. Usiingie kwa housing ukuwe stressed up alafu kuja ukuwe na lifestyle diseases. Leo tuko na the revolutionists. Hawa ndio kama watu wa 1963 wakipigania uhuru ya Kenya. Hawa mpigania story ya hao. Story ya hao na wameipigania for a while. Na actually sitakupea details ati how many years. Tuko na the people who can talk their walk. Na get? Hawa ndio wanaweza talk their walk na struggle ile wampitia. Wacha tuanze na majina.
David Sosah, Vice Chairman, Woodley Residence Welfare Society. I've lived here since 1967. Small boy.
Okay, my name is Sam Gachago. I'm the chairman of Woodley Residence Welfare Society. I was brought up in Woodley because we moved to Woodley in 1965, and I have been living in Woodley ever since.
Niaje? Kuwa proud na pale umetoka, jenga pale umetoka. Usiget cash alafu kae kwa mtaa. These are legends of Nairobi, the builders of Nairobi. What you see in Nairobi, hawa ndio wametengeza Nairobi. Si ama watu wa Yankee Masubaru team ni hawa ndio builders wa Nairobi. Tupate tu history kidogo tu ya Woodley Estate.
Okay, what I can say about Woodley Estate. Woodley Estate was built in they started building it in 1948, and it was built by, it was initiated by the then mayor called Sir Richard Woodley. He sourced for funding in the UK, and he came and he built this estate, which was mainly meant for the, I think for the colonial civil service at that point in time. So there was a lot of Wazungus, well, mainly Wazungus who occupied these houses. And then come independence in 1963, that is when, after 1963, that's when you saw the movement of indigenous Africans now moving into these houses.
Okay.
And that's where in 1965, I think my father managed to get a house here, this particular house, and we moved here. And ever since that, we've been living here. And we have continued living here, and Woodley has had its own share of problems, and that is what actually brought Woodley Estate into the limelight. Is because, you know, there were some unscrupulous people who decided that this estate is, you know, they're going to grab this estate and make it theirs.
How many houses, or what's the size of this estate?
Okay. There are about 188 bungalows in the estate, and about 86 flats.
Okay.
And Woodley in itself sits on about 100 or so acres. The estate is composed of bungalows and flats. The flats are all maybe located in one area, a place called Woodley Green. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the estate is bungalows. Like up this side where I live, it's all bungalows.
Unaweza tuambia famous people who have been from this estate?
We have let's start with maybe the late Barack Obama, who is the father of the former U.S. president.
Okay.
We've had Ocheng Oneko. The late Ocheng Oneko. We had the late Lukabok. We had the late Oilip Tip. We've had the late John Konchellah. We have had the late Jesse Gachago, which is the chairman's father. We had the late Waruru Kanja. We've had the late Lukabok. We have Mr. Midika, whose family still, who is still alive. He was in former government. We've had Mutiso. Gideon
Mutiso, no?
We've got Lubembe, got Kasakalas. We have Kanja, yes, Kanja. We've had.
In short, Woodley Estate, it's a museum.
No, I would not say so.
No, like
no, it's what he means. I think
you have rich history of this.
We have history.
It's a museum of rich history.
It's a museum of rich history.
Yeah.
What I would say is, those who helped shape Kenya,
Yes,
lived in Woodley.
Yeah.
yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
You have a rich museum of history.
Yes.
Yes. So those are the personalities that Woodley had. Of course, we have celebrities like Billy Konchellah, who did well for Kenya. We had my late brother who was killed while fighting for the rights of Woodley residents, and
Many others.
Many others.
Yes.
Many others. Yeah.
Now, fast forward to when did your saga start, the Woodley saga, and tell us about the Woodley saga and the Woodley mafias.
Okay, the Woodley saga, as it popularly became known, is synonymous with the struggle of the people of Woodley against what we at that time were calling illegal land grabbers. Anyway, a land grabber is an illegal entity. This all started in 1992, between 1992 and 1994, when some people in City Hall decided that they were going to sell this estate. No, the decision to sell this estate was made, and actually the former town clerk at that time, who was Zifora Wandera, came and told us to apply to buy these houses. We even filled in application forms which were stamped by her office, and we were waiting now to be offered, these houses. But lo and behold, what we came to find out that all these houses had been sold to non-residents. So when we discovered that,
So you are living in a sold house already?
yes,
Another
and they
person's house?
Yes, and they had titles for these houses. And when we had that, we just could not believe that. It was unbelievable. So that was the genesis of the Woodley saga. That is when we got together and decided, no, enough is enough. We are not going to let anybody, take these houses from us, because the whole estate had been given away to people who were not tenants. So we decided we were going to start agitating for the revocation of this sale. But it was a hard struggle, a very tough, because even the government of the day did not even come to our aid, even when we came and told them what exactly went on here. This is illegal. I remember at some point in time we went to the office of the then Minister of Local Government, the late Komodo. And Komodo said that this matter was too complicated for him to handle, so he left it. Really, can you imagine? We've gone to a full minister to help us. He just told us our matter is too complicated. Because
he's in the office.
He's
the one who's supposed to take care of
and
you
he's also a beneficiary of this. He was also a beneficiary. I think that is why he said,
he was in the list.
He was in the list of beneficiaries of illegal owners. In fact, He used to live in Woodley as well.
Okay.
Before he became a minister, long before.
I don't think. Yeah, okay, something of that.
Now that's complicated because he wants the houses and you are fighting it.
Yeah,
That's
so,
complication.
when these people were given the houses, we decided, well, we're not going to have this. And so we formed ourselves into what we call the Woodley Residents Welfare Society to agitate, against this illegal allocation of our houses. Not only were the houses, illegally allocated, the whole estate. You've seen it's got public utility plots and our popular playing field there was also taken away. So children had no playing ground. So we decided no, this was too much, and we like I said, the government of the day did not come to the aid of Woodley residents. Woodley residents, decided they were going to, see this through and fight for themselves. And the battle and the fight for Woodley Estate has taken about 26 years to come to some kind of fruition in terms of revoking the sale of any title. Because there were I think 100 and something odd titles that were given out, to different people, and so the court in 2019 ruled that any sale of Woodley, the sale of Woodley houses was legal, so people now could somehow rest easy.
26 years.
Yes. Yeah, 26 years.
Chairman
At your age, if you are 24, 25, just remember, they fought for these houses for 26 years.
Yes.
So that's your age. As a young person, I think these are some of the people we should hang out with to get the knowledge, to get the information. As much as there's documentation, but there's much brighter information here.
Yes, we have
more than anything else.
Institutional knowledge on how the struggle, how Nairobians have been struggling, to get their rights, and how they have been subjected to a lot of brutality,
including death,
by the system. At that point, the City Council of Nairobi then was a brutal institution. It was just not based in helping the tenants of city council houses. It was there to exploit them. And there was a lot of people who gained, by brutalizing and exploiting the tenants of city council housing. And it was a very sad affair.
Can you shed more light on the intimidation tactics, the brutality? And you said your late brother was...
He actually was
assassinated because of fighting for the
He
rights.
was the assistant organizing secretary of the Woodley Residents Welfare Society.
What was the name?
His name was Charles Sosah.
Charles Sosah.
Yeah, he was my younger brother.
Okay.
And I recall he fought very well. When the issues of the land grabbers was highlighted in the press, because we gave names.
Yes.
Part of our crusade against land grabbing in Woodley was to find out who
are the grabbers.
Were the grabbers. So, we used our own resources and got what you call proof of who owned what in Woodley, who were outsiders. Most of them were outsiders, and we published it. We got it published in the media. And there was judges, there were ministers, there were senior military men, there was all manner of people, who owned houses in Woodley. At that, after publicizing that, one of them tried to evict a resident in Woodley forcefully because he thought that he had money, so much money that he was an untouchable. So him and Sam, chairman, were threatened, first of all in writing. A written note was given to them, and they went to Kilimani police station and reported.
Do you have the written?
I think it was in the committal bundles when my brother was killed. It's part of what was there as evidence. Then I think 3 or 4 weeks, maybe a month later, my brother was kidnapped and assassinated.
It was a time where this gentleman came and, like what David is saying, tried to break into a house here and kick out a tenant, a resident of Woodley. We were called and we went there with the late Charles Sosah, and we met about four pickup full of people coming to throw her out.
The goons.
Yeah, the goons. So at that point in time, one would have had to know Charles Sosah very well, because Charles was a huge person. And as soon as Charles got out of the car and the people saw what they were up against, they all scattered. The cars drove out and we gave chase to those cars. And we caught up with them. Some we caught up on Ngog Road. And we caught them, and after giving them a few slaps, we grabbed 2 of them, put them in the boot of the Mercedes car we were driving in. Then we followed the other car. And when they saw that they could not do anything, they all jumped out of the car and left the car in the middle of the road. Yeah. So the other 2 the 2 who were in the boot, we brought them here and left them at the chief's office. Just when we were leaving the chief's office, these 2 characters who had sent them were driving up. We said, no, this is too much. And there were about 8 ladies who were waiting, who had come also in a Nissan. So we got into the Nissan and gave chase to these people. And we ended up at the CID headquarters in Nairobi. And at the CID headquarters in Nairobi here, we started struggling and fighting with them. The ladies who were a friend of the ladies who was being evicted had said they're going to remove all their clothes. So we told them, no. The CID told us, go to the OCPD, Kilimani. So we ended up at the OCD Kilimani's office in Kilimani police station. And that is when, the OCPD told us that we should, maintain the peace. But one of them, when he was walking out, threatened to kill somebody. And that is how he ended up in jail. And the ladies still wanted to remove their clothes because this was, it was too much. It was too much to bear. You can't come and throw out a legal tenant.
Who was even a widow.
She was a widow.
Who's been paying since the 60s.
Since the 60s, and you come here and you say that you bought the house. So that was the kind of illegality that we've been fighting over the years. The other was people coming into the estate and saying that they own these houses and, and telling people to either to pay rent or get evicted. That is the kind of environment we lived in for years and years, and fighting also. We had instructed all residents to buy whistles, So if they encountered such a threat, they would blow the whistle, and we'd all come out and chase these people away,
Wacha niwakumbushe. Watu wajui hii tactic ya whistle. Unakumbuka kitambo, mawochi walikuwa na whistle specific, ina sound specific. Ikipigwa hapa huyo watchman mwingine atasikia na huyo mwingine atasikia na huyo mwingine. That was the tactic. As much as in the new generation, people think of much more digitalized things, but still, old habits die hard and they really work.
Ako kafirimbi kalikuwa
kanafanya job. Ikipigwa watu wote wametoka.
Walijua sauti yake. Unajua ni danger imekuja, sasa watu wanatoka. Yeah. Lakini sasa mobile nini CCTV zote zimekuja, watu
wakasahau the original tactic which work.
Yeah,
actually it's a brilliant story. Alafu hapa so far somebody died for fighting for the rights of the people, and I don't think in Kenya Charles Sosah is anywhere in the history. Na tunamekigi movies daily, tunamekigi programs daily. Why don't we do a movie of some guy like Charles Sosah?
And the struggle that that he stood for, because basically me and him were totally inseparable. hata siku hiyo walimchukua, tulikuwa tumewachana 5 minutes. Sasa mimi kuingia kwa nyumba, about 5 minutes later jamaa anakuja amesema amechukuliwa na watu. Wameingiza kwa gari, walikuwa na mamashinga. Mimi nikashtuka. Lakini saa hiyo nikasema hapana. Sasa tukatoka hapa nikakimbia huko chini kuangalia. That is when about 20 minutes later watu wakakuja wakasema kuna rafiki yangu amepigwa bunduki pale Ole Odume. Sasa hiyo sikujua nitafanya nini. Nilikuwa nataka nitafute njia kwenda niende Tanzania au Uganda. Kwa sababu sikujua nini. Nilikuwa nafikiria hata mimi natafutwa. Kwa hivyo sasa nikasema niwachane tu, wacha nivumilie. Tukaenda tukamchukua, akapelekwa mochari akazikwa. Lakini kama wale watu walikuwa nafikiri wamefanya hivi watasimamisha hii struggle yetu, hawakusimamisha. Walituweka bidii sana. Na sisi tukaendelea.
In fact,
na ni kwa sababu leo tuko kwa hizi manyumba.
That is
ni ile struggle
ile vita tulipigana.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your brother and what you felt, especially knowing he was a friend of Mzee, and he was just killed after mwachana na Mzee. How did that damage the movement or increase the just
let me explain a little bit about that. I'm probably closer to the chairman's age than Charlie was. Charlie was the young guy, and but Charlie was the guy also who motivated us to do anything. And since at that particular time I was somewhere else. I could not be in the struggle much. In the struggle, I used to be there, but not
the background.
Yes, so they made a very good team. In fact, I think they outdid themselves. In that they feared nobody. They walked into any office, and I would see them occasionally, and all they would tell me is, we need this, we need that. I used to facilitate. I was more like the facilitator, I was more of the facilitator. I would facilitate this or that for them. So until the time he was killed, they were doing a lot of things. But after he was killed, I said no. I told the chairman, Woodley is not going. These people are not going to succeed in killing Charlie and taking our homes. So I joined Sam. It was a traumatic time because the chairman also went through a lot of psychological stress because of that. Yes. We as a family also went through a lot of psychological stress. And at that time, we couldn't, when you're going to war, or when you're going to do things, you had to use strategy. And our strategy was not open to the public or anybody in Woodley. It was just within what we planned on how we're going to deal with issues. And so it necessitated that it had to be financed. So I doubled as the financer and his helper. Even people in our committee never used to know what we did. They would just see us in this place, that place, and whatever, doing things. We got reprieve a little bit in 2019 when the titles were finally cancelled. This was a very big struggle. I even failed to see why the government did not recognize us, because they had nothing. They had no shamba in Woodley. Everything had gone.
If it wasn't for the struggle, this was because everything in this estate, 100 acres, had gone. It had titles and everything. It wouldn't have been there. If we had not risen to the occasion and said, no, this estate is not going. We've lived here for this long. This is our home, and we're going to fight for it. And we did. For all those 26 years, that's what we've been doing, is fighting for this. You know, we got reprieve when some sort of reprieve when the NAC government came, but they also didn't understand what was going on. You know, they didn't understand. You know, we went to see the then Minister for Local Government to try and make him understand, you know, this idea. He didn't understand. You know, politicians are politicians, you know, so they want to understand what they want. But
what I can say as from this story, it's the people's power. And most of the time, the new generation of Nairobi, people are being told like, you have to have money to have power. But no, it's the people's power. You being a person and joining another person and joining another person, being a unit, one united thing, it's people's power. And it's a good thing that we can learn from Woodley Estate. We can fight for our rights with the housing situation, and also like the Eastlands housing situation. It's with time coming to be a disaster in due time. Now, getting back with the community that you had, how did you manage to run a good committee? Unlike what we see in the Eastlands, where there is a committee that even doesn't understand fighting for the right of the residents to have the house.
I'll tell you I think a lot of people have a lot of misconception that, you see, when you form an organization, that the entire organization moves with you. You know, that is I think it's a misconception of a lot of people, especially when you are in a situation where you're fighting for something. I know personally that it was only left to two people, me and Charles Sosah, to fight, right? You know, to fight for this estate, because everybody else was scared, and they had a right to be scared.
The thing is, with what I'm asking is like, you and Charles Sosah fought. The people are scared, but they are behind you. But they're scared.
No.
But on the other side, like in the Eastlands, there's this committee which is trying to push people to get into the deal, which is not a good deal for them.
You mean about the housing?
Yes.
Okay. No, the housing issue. No, that is it's not right to do things like that. The committee of any community fights for the welfare of the community, and that's what we've always done.
Selflessly.
You know, selflessly.
What I would maybe like to add, you asked a very nice question. The question you asked is, what does it take for a committee to be successful? The committee to be successful, it needs diligent people. It needs people who are totally 100% selfless and are very vigilant. You see, if you don't have those qualities, you will not be able to run an organization. You have a lot of dissenting people. Yes, they are there, dissenting because of other interests. But for us, we don't tolerate them. And, you know, we just leave them on the wayside and do what is right for them, the greater good of the other residents. That's what we do.
Like, if from a layman angle, like I'm a resident, but this is the committee, we trust the committee, but the committee, it's pushing us to agree to a deal which will hurt us in the long run.
You see,
that's the main
the whole issue of a committee that is dedicated.
Some of these committees are like having a selfish agenda in the background.
We bring people together and allow them to make decisions as to the direction they want. You know, I'll give you public participation, because I'll give you an example of what was happening. You know, during this redevelopment issue.
Yes.
You know, the redevelopment issue started in 2014 during Kidero's tenure. And, you know, it has just been going on in a very lackluster way. Nothing has happened. Because at that point in time, there were 10 estates that needed to be redeveloped. Only 2 have been redeveloped so far, and they are not even complete to date. You know, so there is something very wrong with the whole system. agenda. And residents who agree, and they are agreeable, that, you know, we live on county land. This is not our land. We are rent payers, we pay rent. If the county wants to develop its property, it has a right to do so. But it just doesn't come and just redevelop it without sitting down with the tenants and the residents and understanding exactly what they want. You understand? That is what you've got to sit down and have a conversation with the residents. You know that they want the kind of units they want. You know, and that we've had over the years with the county.
One thing that the government should do is recognize also that these are old houses. We are not averse to redevelopment. These are very old houses. They neglected to maintain them from 1969. They have not maintained. We are the ones who have continued to maintain them to make it livable.
Do you think the neglect was tactical?
I think it was these estates became a liability to the government.
No, it's just inefficiency.
Yes, and they're inefficient. So what we did is we maintained the houses. So even if we are talking about redevelopment, they wish to go into redevelopment and we are not averse to it. Fine. There are so many factors they also need to consider in terms of what we have spent and so forth, and what they've gained from us in terms of the rent we've paid and so forth. They need to sit with us and have a conversation with us and recognize some kind of equity so that the issue of housing is considered in a very nice way.
If I may ask, with Woodley Estate, like you said, funding came from Britain. So it's not like the city council built the houses, it was funding from Britain. So was there any agreement per se, as in after you pay for a certain time of period, the houses should be left to you, or?
No. There was no such agreement. What there was is in 1997, one of our residents then, who was also the MP for Embakasi, he's the late Henry Rohio, who passed away, I think, last month or so. Henry Rohio contributed to a private member's motion about selling council houses to the sitting tenants, and this was an issue that was debated at that time, and it was unanimously passed that should the Nairobi City Council sell its houses, it should consider priority should be given to the sitting tenants. You understand? And that is the way they were going at it. They were not looking at redevelopment, they were looking at selling the houses to the sitting tenants. Understand?
So, at that moment, what was the agreeable selling price?
You see, like, we were not talking about an agreeable selling. It all depends on the area. Because if you came to Woodley, it's a different thing. If you went to Embakasi or wherever, it would be different.
I think, Chairman, I think the precedence was, and Woodley particularly, was that it was considered through that motion, I think, and so forth. The consideration was that this is social housing. And
no, we all live in social housing.
Yes, it's social housing, and social housing always has a soft landing. There is either the rent to buy, or those kind of systems.
Yeah, during the parliamentary motion, I think it was the Honourable Professor Anyang' Nyong also brought up the issue of what was currently happening, or what had happened in Britain during the tenure of Margaret Thatcher, whereby the British government was selling the council houses to the sitting tenants. And he said that the government of Kenya should take a leaf from there, And this was called it was called the right to buy.
Rent to buy.
The rent to buy. The rent to buy, whereby, tenants of city council houses are given the opportunity to buy their houses through that scheme, and that is one of the things that they said they would consider. But you see, that was just talk at that time. But Parliament did pass it. But implementation of whatever Parliament decides, we don't know what happened. We've written to Parliament asking, was this motion ever discussed or implemented? But City Hall and the City Council from that point in time, you could not depend on them, because it was just it was a breeding ground for a lot of corruption.
I think at that time, for a long time, I think maybe with the present governor, we're hoping that things will change, because City Hall has been known to be the land of the lords of impunity. Anything illegal happens. It used to happen in City Hall, and I think it's time that the government looks critically into issues in City Hall and make it a proper, workable institution where services are given, where it does what it has been mandated to do, not giving people approvals for left, right, and center. The rule of law needs to be followed in all aspects of running this county.
Show nifika mtaani uko na Mr. Green na leo tuko Woodley. My friend, tukirudi hawajatuambia story ya the Woodley Mafias. Tukirudi hiyo ndio story tunapiga. The 10 Woodley Mafias. Hawa watu hawajulikani Nairobi, mtawajua leo. Welcome back. Uko katika fika mtaani, uko na Mr. Green na leo tuko Woodley. Alafu tuko na a lot of information. Ulikuwa utuambie about housing, vile ilianza hii kesi yenu ya housing.
Okay, what I can say is that in 1973, the then councillor of the area, that was Nathan Kahara, had written to the Minister of Local Government then in 1973, requesting that the residents then in 1973 wanted to buy these houses because the Nairobi City Council could not maintain them. You understand? That is only about how much? About 10 years after independence. And the council was not being able to maintain them. And the residents had shown an interest. If you cannot maintain this estate, let us buy these estates. That did not happen. And the quest for the purchase of these houses from the government, has been went on for the next 15, 20 years, with a back and forth, because no issue of redevelopment at that point in time had been brought up. It is the residents who said, let us sell us these houses. We would like to sell these houses because you have shown us that you cannot maintain these houses. So we went on back and forth until 2013, 2014, when Dr. Evans Kidero came into the picture as the governor of Nairobi. And Dr. Kidero called us and he gave us an option. He says, I know Woodley has gone through a lot, but to end all the struggles and all the problems of Woodley, I'm giving you an option of letting us redevelop the estate so that everybody can own, either it's an apartment, and and we shall be able to finish all these issues of who owns what and blood and illegal buyers, land grabbing and what have you. So we told him, yes, we've agreed. We'll agree to that as soon as we've sat down with our people and we have agreed that this is what they want. And eventually we did go and sit with our people and told them this is what the government has planned for us. And the majority of the residents agreed that that was fine with them. But that plan died there and then, So Kidero left and in came Sonko, And during Konchellah, nothing much was discussed about Woodley. You know, I think there were still plans to redevelop it.
During Sonko's tenure, that's where Pangani and Jivanji started.
Yeah,
Yes,
Pangani and Jivanji
yes,
started.
because this was part of the Agenda 4, which is also within the Vision 2030, which was started during Kidero's, during Kibaki's tenure.
SDGs.
Yes, and I think any normal person would embrace redevelopment, as it is a positive move towards creating more housing for other Kenyans. But it should be done in a structural way with those considerations that we discussed earlier, which gives us an avenue to accept and accommodate the kind of investment we put in over that period of time that we've lived there. So I'm looking at Eastlands as well. They are facing redevelopment. They're going to have modern housing. The density of housing is going to increase and all that. But the guys who stayed there, the people who stayed in those houses for all those years, generations, or it could be 3 or 4 generations of people, they should also be given a soft landing. Social housing is social housing. And a lot of considerations. We need to have a conversation with the governor. We need to have a conversation with the president. We need to sit with them and with our proposals. When we are having during our public participation, a lot has to be done.
Okay, if I can take you back a bit, like for Woodley, you wanted to be considered to buy the houses.
Yes.
Now, the challenging question is like, if you buy the houses, is there a guarantee that the estate will be maintained the same way, or your neighbor might end up selling the place and another high rise comes up?
Yes, that is the problem with ownership. Once I own this particular plot, what I do with it, it's mine. As long as I do it within the framework of the county zoning laws and so forth.
Do we have policies that you can to tame such a situation?
No, yes, there are zoning laws.
There are zoning laws, and they are very clear. They're out there and they're very clear. And I think, one has to practice to be able to abide by those rules and regulations on the zoning laws.
Because the initial redevelopment, when they first told us about redeveloping Woodley, they came up with some crazy figures, like they were going to go up to 25 floors. But what saved us is that Woodley is on a flight path.
Can you climb 25 floors?
25 floors. I don't think most of them. No, I wouldn't live there. I would never live in a building like that. No.
That would be a tall lot. I think you're looking at directly ahead of us is Ngong Road.
Yes.
That is 14.
That is. Can you see it? That is 14 floors.
That's 14 floors.
That
so
already is a monstrosity.
20.
That is on 1 acre of land.
It is too congested.
Yes.
Why I'm asking about policies to tame such a situation? It's like for Isili, there is Juja Road Estate, the old Juja Road Estate, where people had their houses, the mansionette.
Yeah.
Now, some were sold, and the people who bought them demolished, and they're putting large apartments.
Yes, because if you look...
While I think there's a policy of you should not destroy the mansionette and rebuild.
No.
This is why we go back to City Hall.
Yeah.
We go back to City Hall and the land of impunity.
Land of impunity.
Yes. Why are they giving people permits, permission to build, without due consideration? Because if I'm going to build a high-rise here, I have to consult this neighbor, that neighbor, and that neighbor. I have to bring them to participate. We have what you call public participation. We have to, discuss it. We have to fill a questionnaire, and we have to get NEMA approvals and so forth. My question to you would be, those buildings you're talking about that are coming up in those areas, have you gone and seen their documents? Did they have proper public participation?
What you call that?
That is impunity.
The Nairobi County has what we call zoning laws.
Yes.
Zoning laws stipulates that in certain areas you can only build certain structures at certain heights and so forth. You understand? None of those zoning laws are ever followed anymore, and because we've had a very, very ineffective county administration or city council or whatever, who haven't been able to exactly follow and control the development of certain areas, of the whole of Nairobi. You know yourself, you can go throughout Nairobi, go wherever you go, and you will see uncontrolled development everywhere, anywhere. So I think it is up to Governor Sakaja now to put his foot down and and agree on a system of redevelopment in Nairobi, not this haphazard redevelopment everywhere, where if you buy a plot of land, you just do whatever you feel like without following the laid down rules and regulations. That is what people should be following.
What can you say about social housing and affordable housing?
I do not know whether social housing and affordable housing are synonymous. Because when people talk about social housing, are they referring to affordable housing? Because social housing is meant to be affordable to the mwananchi. And what they're trying to do right now, and this is an issue that has been discussed year after year after year, is how do you make sure that the mwananchi can afford to buy a house? A guy goes to work, he's paid a salary of, let's say, 50,000 shillings. Is that person able to afford a house? Or what is in the market at that point in time that is affordable? In most cases, like today, if you look at, there's nothing affordable. If you're earning 50,000 shillings, you're only, you're good for a one bedroom, one room house, with which you share kitchen and toilets or whatever. That is what you're good for, because you cannot put 50 or 60% of your salary to rent. So the whole issue of affordable housing is I think is what the government is still working on. And I think the government should actually fast track this and put it, and actually make sure that this housing becomes a priority issue.
A priority issue?
Yes, housing should be a priority, because when you look at things here, which are the food security and shelter, those are the priorities for any human being, So housing and shelter should be prioritized, because over the years since you got independence, housing has always been put in the back burner. It has never been a priority issue, and it should be prioritized.
It should be prioritized.
Yeah, so that everybody, when you go to work, when you've worked for 20, 30, 40 years, and you've been paying rent for 30 years, how are you going to continue paying rent?
Mama Mboga also can afford.
Can afford.
I think the president also has come up with a good agenda, and you've seen the initiative that he is trying to do in Nakuru and Kibera. I think those are very positive moves to solve the housing crisis in Kenya. I think he's taking it out boldly, and I would really support the moves. I really support the moves he's making, and it should be fair across the board. And
I think the current His Excellency President William Ruto, there's one thing that actually points to the fact that he will make the housing thing work. It's because he has the energy and commitment to make it work.
Yes.
And we believe we are witnessing a new era in this government, whereby things are going to happen.
Now, one of the biggest questions is, if the President William Ruto goes on with the social housing agenda and gets to build more houses, don't you think there'll be a fight from the real estate developers?
I think housing is a policy. Housing has its policy. Kenya has reached a stage where population has grown, and there has not been enough houses, and at that, affordable houses. The president is making the right moves, and he's got the right script. And I think Kenyans should embrace and support him to make sure that every Kenyan owns a house. I think I don't think anybody in their right mind would oppose.
No.
Yeah.
Oppose. No, the whole issue of affordable and so on social housing is to be able to enable Kenyans to buy houses. You understand? Shelter is, as I've said before, is very important. So you cannot and what you said is prioritize housing. Don't put it on the back burner. Because once you put it on the back burner, because I'll give you a story we were told some time ago. I think this happened in the 1960s or 70s. The government of the day then wanted to build houses. Very, very, very. It was very keen, and it's always been an issue with the government that they need to build houses. But I think it is just the know-how, and a little bit of corruption here and there that should slow down the whole process. And and they came this. I think it was some European countries came and they said they can build houses at that time for as low as I think it's 50,000 shillings for a 2-bedroom house. And they were not talking high, high rise and what have you. But at that point in time, the guys who were in the housing department looked at it, and they saw there was nowhere they were going to make money, so they shelved the whole thing. So we've got to do away with this. There's got to be a system whereby the people who are in charge of actually making sure that that there is redevelopment of affordable houses should be people of integrity.
For my last question, if I may ask, all this information you have and all the fight that you've put in for 26 years, there is a boy who's 24 years and doesn't know anything, and he lives in Woodley. And if all of your timeline comes to an end and you move out,
yes, I know we have.
Who's going to fight for?
Of course, there will be a vacuum in terms of knowledge. But whatever knowledge.
What can be done?
Well, I think that what can be done is maybe through forums like this, where we can discuss. We can be able to sensitize them, and we are ready to tell them, to show them, and let them know what has happened in the past. Because a 24-year-old young man has not known the struggles. My 19-year-old son was born after my late brother was killed. You see, so it's only when you talk to him and he reads our letters and he reads the newspaper clips that are available, the ones that we've kept, is how he educates himself. He will come and say, Uncle Sam, what happened here and then?
The challenging question is that these young guys aren't interested in critical information like this. They are all in entertainment.
All we can do, and as you can say that their attention is focused elsewhere, because this is what you call the digital age.
Yes.
So what you can do.
Because I feel it's the information age, while we don't have the information.
The information.
We need to document it.
Yes. Hold on. You're talking about, like right now, what are we doing? We are documenting situations and issues for posterity. And it is up to you now to come interview people like us, like you've done in Ziwani, and go to the other estates, and put it out in a palatable manner for this young generation. I don't know where you put it, because it's in TikTok or whatever, you know, YouTube. Put it there for them to be able to access this information, because they are always on their phones and everything. I think once you digitalize all this information and put it there for them to understand and to because there's no way you're going to call them and interest them. Tell them that the history of where you live or your estate is here. Read it at your own pleasure. That's all you can do.
And since they're on these gadgets, they will read.
They will, you know.
Because that's the gadget that's close to them.
And then you see, the whole thing is that now with that, you know, it's going to be on I suppose it's going to be on YouTube. So it will be on YouTube, so they can access it easily. You know, before we couldn't. We never had that kind of system. But with them, you have to put it on YouTube or TikTok or or whatever. You know, in social media, because everybody just gulps up social media. So put it out there for them to look at.
As we wind up for Charles Sosah, what has Woodley done for like commemoration or remembrance, or what do you do for this great person?
You know what we do is we pray for him, and we thank God that he was once part of our community. And just like you were, I think when we meet again, because you say we're going to meet periodically, we can do a whole session on Charles Sosah, and we'd like also that documented so people can read about him and know exactly what he stood for.
I think we can do that during his memorial in February.
Yeah.
We can decide, we can agree to do something. And,
or even before that, so that we have that. And during his time, at least you have something to put out in the media, in the social media. And you should always have something on social media for people like Charles, and this is what he did and so forth, so these people can read about it.
Yeah. I think to add up to that, there was a discussion with some of his friends. Charlie had a lot of friends. They wanted me to initiate to start a foundation, the Charles Sosah Foundation. In fact, the other day Monyo and all were talking about Charles Sosah Memorial Cup for golf. Things like that. So there's some talks on remembering Charlie in many sectors.
What you wanted to find out, has he been sufficiently?
No.
No, he hasn't.
Acknowledged.
No, he has not been acknowledged. Have we been sufficiently acknowledged? No, we were not there for the fame and glory. We just did what we had to do. And we did it with a passion,
yes.
And we said, okay, fine.
I want to add, yes, the chairman is saying that, but I would say yes. We have not seen the government come and tell us, thank you very much for getting us the land back, that we are able to do a redevelopment for other Kenyans. That has never happened, and it's a pity.
I don't think the government isn't obligated in any way. But we would appreciate, a good tap on the back and say thank you.
As we finish, what can you tell the current governor, Mr. Sakaja, and the current president, Mr. William Ruto?
First of all, let me start with the president. I would like to hail.
Now, this should be attentional to him directly.
Yes, I would like to hail him for his. Efforts in trying to create housing for Kenyans, affordable housing for Kenyans. That he has done great, and we would like him to continue with it, because we'd like to see an end to. We'd like to see an end to the housing crisis for the people who can't afford them. That's number one. And to the governor, I would like to urge him to be, because in his manifesto he says that he is going to embrace talking to residential associations and having them included in decision making. I would like him to live up to his word on that, because without that, there's no meaningful progress in terms of as association and governor and whatever. There will be nothing meaningful there. He has to sit with us and engage us in a conversation that will help us make the right decisions.
Chairman.
Well, there is nothing I can say about His Excellency, but he has started on the right foot. And I know he has his heart in the right place, and where he wants to help the Kenyans at large. And he has prioritized the housing agenda in Kenya. And I'm sure that we are going to we're going to see the fruits of his efforts in creating affordable housing for Kenyans. And Governor Sakaja, as usual, is a man of the people, and I'm sure he's also working towards making sure that Nairobi is going to have its fair share of social and affordable housing. And we would like to say that we are fully behind him 100%. And if he needs us, like he said, as resident associations, we are there to offer, whatever help we can. And we're there basically for him, and we will support him to the hilt.
Show imekuwa nifika mtaani na Mr. Green, tulikuwa Woodley. Specifically show itakuwa in remembrance to Charles Sosah, one of the great people wale wajakuwa acknowledged Kenya, na lazima tumkumbuke. This is a total dedication to Charles Sosah, and more will be coming about Charles Sosah. Fika mtaani na Mr. Green. Thank you.